Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the next episode of Heresy Hammer. You are joined by myself, Rob, at Midas Miniatures, and Lee at Death from the Shadows. Lee, I assume you just got off your night shift. Literally, just got off, hopped in the car, came back here, and then are recording Heresy Hammer, right?
No.
Oh, you were not working yesterday. Oh,
No, I
right,
went to
okay.
work yesterday. No, no.
Okay, fair enough, fair
Was
enough.
was I doing anything yesterday? I can't remember what I was doing. I was doing something yesterday, but it wasn't work.
Painting Iron Warriors, hopefully.
No, I wasn't doing that,
Boo, boo,
unfortunately.
boo, boo. So welcome everybody. So just a few admin bits that John implored us to share before we get started. So the first thing to say is that we
Oh,
are now on all of the major podcasting, pod hosting websites and
odd
apps.
things.
So basically, I only ever use Spotify, so I have no idea about any other ones because Spotify is clearly the
Exactly the
best.
same. Yeah.
But you can listen to us there. And actually, this is a great example of an episode where it's actually perfect to listen to on via podcast rather than YouTube, because actually we're just going to be reading a lot of what the kind of like the prepared notes. So if you listen to us on the podcast, it will make it seem like actually we know what we're talking about, but really we're just
Eh.
reading off a PowerPoint. We have done lots of research for this before we go. John also wanted us to mention in the authoritarian style that he told us yesterday. He was like, "You must mention this." So, Apple Podcast people, if you sign up via Apple to Patreon, it will cost you 30% more. So, John's advice is just do it via the website rather than signing up through Apple. I don't use Apple, so hopefully that makes sense to the
No, I don't.
Apple
I
users.
I read his notes and I was like, I don't understand any of this because I'm not a fucking Steve Jobs, surely.
And he also wanted to mention that we have a new WhatsApp community group as well. Now, the WhatsApp community is massive. It must have
Yeah.
like 250
At
plus
least
people on them.
10,000 people on there.
But what we have done for you guys is to kind of split topics or split areas into topics. So it's not just one general chat. Like there's a painting and feedback like chat. There's a list design and feedback chat, rules discussion. And as time goes on, I'm sure, and as the groups grow bigger, there'll probably be more kind of more groups added to it. So you pick and choose like you would at Woolworths doing your pick and mix. If you're English and a millennial, then sorry, British
Gonna
and a
say like there's a
millennial,
lot of
you're
people
you're
listening that are like, what
you'll
the
know what
fuck
that
is
you'll know what that
Walrus?
means. But basically, you just pick and choose which ones you want to be part of. I've found great use from the list building one actually, and the rules discussion one. Those have been, and it's not, it does go off an awful lot. So just like mute it and but you got it in the background and you can into it. It's similar to Discord, but John has no idea how Discord works, so he's opted for WhatsApp. So those are just some of the kind of updates. And of course, don't forget, if you do want to support us, then you can support us by heading over to patreon.com/heresyhammer and then signing up there. And it just allows us to continue to make content. But what are we looking at today, Lee? So
Oh,
we are doing another lore episode. So we've done the Siege of Chthonian. We've done a three-parter Beta Garmin episode, and today we are having a look at the devastation of Talon. Now, this does not cover all of the events that happen on Talon throughout the Horus Heresy. This actually just covers what is in the new um, Limp, but Limp, am I saying that right? In the Legions Imperialis
yeah.
book. So it does not like it's interesting where this goes up to. The main events are going to be on Sapphire City. I want to say Sapphire City.
Yes.
Um, what a stupid name for a for a, for a city. It feels like a bit Wizard of Oz. Is that what the Emerald City, isn't it? That's what it's that's what it's called. So we won't cover all of the events that happen on Talon, and I'm sure as the Heresy series progress, we will kind of like do a second parter. But all the information that we got from this episode has come from the new Talon book. So if you're into like, and I guess like the biggest way to say it, because obviously Talon is obviously known for its massive tank battles, right? Mainly because if you step outside of your tank, you are
You
immediately
melt.
like melt. Yeah,
Yeah.
even Astartes armor melts within like seconds.
Which I
Um,
will come back to at some point in the future.
yeah, but
Because there's certain bits that happen in this book that I'm like,
Yeah.
those dudes would have melted. But yeah,
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 that's it. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And the other thing to say, because I was like in my head, I had Talon as like just a massive tank battle, but obviously there's so much more that happens.
yeah.
Um, and what I did actually was I did some research on the Battle of Kursk because I was like, oh, I wonder whether or not they're going to take a
Okay,
lot of stuff from here. But actually, it's just a tank battle. Like the
yeah.
similarities of them is just like it's just literally tank battle. So if you're unfamiliar with the Battle of Kursk, I'd be shocked if you are unfamiliar with it. But basically, it's the biggest like vehicle battle ever, that had like the combined arms of men, tanks, and aircraft as well. But it's famously known for it, like the amount of tanks that were used, and like introduced like the tiger and the, I want to say the panther, but maybe that's not correct. But anyway, so we're gonna have
I
a look at
want to,
Talon today.
what was the, sorry, just a
That's right.
very, very, very bizarre side note. But
Yeah.
for those that don't know, my wife is Italian and her grandparents were obviously about in the war. Her
Mm.
granddad fought for the Italians,
Mm.
and her nana was running around trying to dodge all the fighting.
Okay.
And she told me this story the first time I went over there. Um, of how she was living in a church somewhere in Italy, like some
Yeah,
rural part of Italy. And the Americans, being the Americans, they dropped a bomb on the church, which
that's it.
blew her out of the church and tore all her clothes off her.
Right.
So she was like, right, need to fuck off from here. So where can I go? And she ended up in Monte Cassino,
Oh, right. Oh,
which,
gosh. Oh, my
if
God.
anyone
Right. Oh,
knows,
my God.
was one
Yeah.
of the largest tank battles of the
yeah. Yeah. But it's actually funny
and
because James Holland has literally
yeah.
just written a book about Monte Cassino and what happens there.
Oh, really? I
Yeah,
need to
like
give it a
I think
listen.
the abbey, the famous abbey at like Monte Cassino is like totally destroyed,
I
isn't it?
mean, I don't know a lot about it other than
Yeah.
Iz's nana was fucking in the
But yeah,
middle.
yeah, definitely worth having a look at checking out that book because yeah, James Holland has just written a new book. Anyway,
Oh,
we
damn
get
it.
sidetracked. Anyway,
Sorry. We
let's thank our sponsors before we get started. So thank you to Bits Monster, who are a company based out of Northern Ireland. You can use the code Heresy Hammer for 10% off, and UK shipping is free over £25. We have also got, excuse me, we've also
Oops.
got get your 3D printing. I've literally just got, this is amazing actually. So I ordered this from Dan last week. He posted it on Saturday and it came on Sunday. I was like, what the hell? This is crazy.
Oh,
Yeah, I was like a Sunday delivery from Royal Mail. Absolutely nuts.
yeah. A delivery
Anyway,
from Royal Mail.
well, yeah, too right. Anyway, so some great stuff from Get 3D Printing. So thanks for sponsoring us there, Dan. And thank you as well to Kirton Games. So I have literally just picked up two boxes of the new melee weapon arms from Kirton Games. They did
Oh,
it
fuck, I need to
fast.
buy them. I forgot
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, you need to go to Kirton Games, mate. That's where you need to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were absolutely brilliant. Like they sorted me out. Like I'm expecting it any day now. I suppose it comes out like on Saturday, right?
Oh,
So
I don't
hopefully it will
know. You
arrive
know
on
what? It's been so
Saturday.
long that we've been talking about melee weapons. I actually
I
completely
can't remember
forgot
when it
that
comes
they
out.
were even being released.
So yeah, so thanks for sponsoring us, and make sure you pick up all your plastic goodies from those guys. And then here we go on to the devastation of Talon. So
Yeah.
you have a real hard on, I think, for Talon, right? Like whenever I've spoken to you, like Talon, it's my jam. Like it's
I
my thing.
do and I don't.
Okay.
Um, I I do because it's Iron Warriors,
Mhm.
and Iron Warriors is my legion.
Yeah, I must say before we get started, I think they act with some pretty poor form when they arrive in the system. I don't think they come across very well. Um,
And this is where I want to love Talon because I love
yeah,
the idea of it. I mean, this is literally like Talon is what the Iron Warriors were designed for. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like
yeah,
mass armored infantry, just fucking horrific conditions, just grueling fighting. But
yep,
every book I've ever read about Talon, the Iron Warriors just look like dickheads,
yeah, yeah.
where
They
they're
act
getting
with
their
yeah,
asses handed to them by a bunch of conscripts,
yeah,
basically. And I think that is, I think this book, so I'll give my impressions in a second, but I think that's where the Talon Legions Imperialis book goes a little bit better than some of the Black Library books, where they don't they aren't completely fucking useless.
yeah,
Um, they aren't amazing, but I mean, as we get into the battle for Sapphire City, you kind of see that they basically crush the enemy, but they take a lot of casualties.
Yeah, yeah,
But that's kind of the Iron Warriors way.
yeah.
But I obviously read the Talon trilogy a while
Hmm.
ago now. It's
Hmm.
been a while.
Yeah, yeah. They did a whole
Um,
series of books, didn't they? Actually, it's been a long
yeah, well,
time
there
since I
was
read them.
two or three short stories. I think it was
Yeah.
three main novels,
Mm,
and I think it was about three short stories.
okay.
And I'll be honest, they're not the best Black Library books, I don't
Mm,
think.
hmm.
And once again, like you've got humans, it's one of those things that they struggle with in books. Because obviously, because in the books you're following a crew of like basically
Yeah,
militia. Now you have to keep them alive, because otherwise, what's the point in the book?
yeah,
But then they're fighting against Astartes in the most horrific conditions. So actually, if you were writing, I'd say, a realistic book in inverted commas, because nothing about this is realistic. But if you were writing a realistic book, most of these tank crews would last seconds before just getting obliterated by Iron Warriors,
yeah,
you know? So like you have these, and they are literally kind of like a mismatch of dudes and dudettes that go out and absolutely seem to batter the Iron Warriors. And you're
mm,
like, I don't really get what's happening here. Because
yeah,
if this
yeah,
was a small story, if Talon was a small story in a black book, it would have been, the Iron Warriors came, the full Legion came, and within a day they'd crushed all resistance.
yeah.
But the actual story of Talon, it just seems like they can't really
Yeah,
do much of
the thing I would
anything.
say, the only thing I guess the counterpoint would be because lots of it is mechanized, because most of it happens within tanks, they to some extent they have leveled the playing field. So your solar auxilia
Yeah, I
against your
agree
Iron
to a
Warriors,
point.
your tanks are, you know, you've it's not like you're fighting hand to hand, although that does happen.
Yeah,
You're fighting tank on tank. So yeah, there's I think there's a
but you
level of the
also
playing
have to
field.
remember that Perturabo's in charge.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
the man's a fucking.
Well, is he in charge, or does he really leave it to Forex to?
Well,
Well,
I think he
we'll
kind
come
of
to that.
leaves it, but yeah, like if you're taking that many casualties, at
Ah,
some
yeah,
point
I think
you
you'd
would be
probably.
thinking,
Yeah, I need to
what the
micromanage the
fuck is
situation
going
right
on
now.
here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
I,
like certain little bits, but yeah, I mean, one thing I would say about the book itself, for anyone looking to buy it, I mean, I have an interest in Limp, but I haven't actually played it, so I couldn't tell you anything about the rules. But I was surprised for the price it is, how fucking little there is in here.
yeah, yeah.
Like
You
it
were
was
saying that
30
before.
quid book, and it's not even half the size of the normal black books.
Right. Okay.
Which is kind of standard for the Legions Imperialis books.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, if this was 20 quid, it would feel
Worth it.
more worth it.
Yeah.
Like the actual fluff is cool, but there's not a huge amount to it. And
Hmm.
then it talks about a lot of units that we've not really heard of before, and then
Hmm.
there's no color plates, there's no nothing.
Yeah.
There's no kind of information about them, and I get sometimes they do that so you can just create your own color schemes and stuff. But then usually what will happen is 2 years down the line they'll show you a picture of one and you're like, oh, that looks nothing
Dread.
like what I've
What I've
done.
created. Yeah. Um.
Which probably doesn't bother most people, but yeah,
Yeah.
I enjoyed the book. Like I think the story's well written.
Hmm.
I think there's certain bits that I'm like, that's just a bit silly, isn't it? But then
Yeah.
most of these
Well,
stories are not.
you're a harsh critic, so yeah.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A Simon Cowell of Black
Um,
Library and horror surface novels.
but
Right.
yeah,
Okay. Well, should we get into it, and
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
you'll take us through. Yeah, you'll take us through. So take it away.
Let's do it. So, the death of Talon deserves remembrance, not for the grand stratagems that hinged on its fate, for there were none, nor the commanders who led the bloodshed, for their just reward is the crypt's embrace alone. Remembrance is due for a world whose only crime was to exist as the ravening hounds of the Imperium reached the end of their leash. Many will recount great tales of the Heresy's masterful strategists, of maneuvers and stratagems which tipped the balance of war's grim arithmetic, and pivotal conflicts which changed the stakes of the galactic conflict in a single moment. None can tell such tales of Talon. And I think that literally sums up talent, to be
Yeah,
honest. It's just a fucking just a wasteland of death, isn't it? Like
yeah,
literally. And this is where the Iron Warriors really fit into the story of talent, because their kind of MO is literally, if something's not working, throw more bodies at it.
yeah.
Um, which yeah, just becomes like
Yeah,
this
I would also
grinding
say
hellhole.
that this is very much how I see the Imperium. If Horus was to win, um, this is very much how I would see the Imperium in all its like glory, just like wastelands and,
Right.
not caring about the people. It's funny that it's interesting that actually there was no need to virus bomb this planet. He like Pertwee could have attacked it. The benefit of virus bombing it is that you obviously kill a whole lot of people. But I think it just demonstrates, I think, the agenda of the traitors just more generally, and the way that they see the Imperium post Horus. It will not look like the Imperium under the Emperor, I guess. So.
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting take. Yeah, but it's funny you say about the viral bombing because yeah, like actually probably just made life harder for yourself.
Well, it totally made harder, like totally
Like
made,
it
because
just
they're looking like we're going to get
it,
to it in a minute. They're looking
we're,
for something, but it
we're
totally makes
looking for
life
something,
harder.
but what we're going to do is make it really hard to see anything.
Yeah, yeah, it's nightmarish. Yeah,
So Talon was a paradise world of lush green rolling plains and oceans brimming with wildlife. When Talon was discovered and brought to compliance, it was used as a muster point to continue the Great Crusade. As the only life-sustaining world encountered in that sector so far, it was spared the fate of being turned into an industrial world, as its abundant fields may have been needed to feed the sector. And this was literally the only thing that stopped it being turned into some
yeah,
sort of imperial hellhole, was that there were no other agri worlds near it, and
yeah,
they needed to keep it as an agri world to
yeah,
sustain the amount of people they were
yeah.
storing there.
It's also interesting. It's not far away from Inwit, is it? Either it's kind of like
No, no, no,
further
literally,
south
yeah,
on
yeah,
the galactic
yeah,
map, but it's not too
yeah,
far away from Terra,
no.
and not too far away from Inwit. Yeah,
So huge underground storehouses were dug for the weapons needed to allow it to be the muster world. So like these, when we say underground storehouses, we mean like entire complexes.
yeah,
And the main reason these were built was to keep the surface as it was. So they didn't want to industrialize the surface.
yeah.
And these are like huge, cavernous, like tens of thousands of tanks stored in like one building with massive tunnels connecting them all. Um, Eventually, better agri-worlds were found in the sector, and the front lines of the Great Crusade moved on, leaving Talon as a world that was neither industrialized or cultivated, and left to the, I can't see what that says.
Obscurity.
So
Um,
yeah, so basically, it was set up as kind of huge underground kind of storeroom stores, like, but not just equipment, people as well. Like there are entire regiments of like militia and solar auxiliaries kept there. And then the Great Crusade just moves on, and it kind of, if you think of the size of the Great Crusade, it's probably not that hard to imagine all these people just kind of getting forgotten about.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
also, I have read, and I think it mentions in this book, that actually a lot of it was sealed off by the signed off by the War Master. So there is also this kind of, did Horace put this all there so he could launch an attack
Yeah, well,
into
we'll
Inwit?
get to that at the very end, actually.
Oh, is
So,
it?
but
Okay.
the other thing I want to add to this is that lots of veterans. So when you finish your service with the Imperial Army, Solar Auxilia or whatever, you'll get a piece of land on one of these worlds, right? So
Yeah.
we saw that with Alanus Pius with when he was on Calth, he'd like got a parcel of land. But also, this is a place where you would get a parcel of land to like farm and things like that for yourself, which is important later on because that does mean that there are some harder veterans on um, Talon, which is important for later.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Sorry, I got fucking boxes everywhere. Let's move on. When the death of Talon begins, the system has barely any warp-capable spacecraft left. The majority of the fleet has been recalled to the Inwit protectorate which sits close by. Dawn, unwilling to pull ships from Terra's defense, strips neighboring systems of
Yeah.
their fleets to protect Inway.
That's
So
and
yeah,
that's really important that basically like, it's completely left alone with
but it's also
Orbital defenses which are just totally inadequate to defend a planet of that size.
but actually probably a good thing because anything that would have been there would
Would
have
have been
not
destroyed.
held
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
against the entire Fourth Legion turning
Yeah.
up. But yeah, basically it was left like entirely
Yeah.
defenseless. Without warning, the full force of the Iron Warriors Legion emerges from the warp, returning to real space in an impossible location far inside the system. The Iron Warriors fleet is in complete disarray, ships tumbling, crashing into one another, and systems failing. A few unscrupulous Iron Warrior commanders take the opportunity to settle old grudges and fire on their brothers' ships, lost in the chaos of the arrival.
Poor form by the Iron Warriors, I feel here.
I kind of liked this bit. It's basically like, so essentially, they obviously used the Chaos Gods to get them through the warp, and it landed them basically next to Talon.
Yeah, which is super unusual. Like you don't. That's
Yeah,
not
you
what
you
happens, is it?
normally like translate outside of a system and then
Yeah.
fly in, wouldn't you? Whereas they
Yeah.
literally arrived right. I mean, why couldn't they do this at Terra? I don't know.
Well,
With
they
this,
did do that's like they do have the gates that allow them to do that. That's the
but the
thing.
gate was still in the Sol system. It wasn't right next to Terra, was it?
Uh, I don't know. I think it was. Well, I don't know if it was right next to Sarah, but anyway, that's by the by. That's for
Anyways,
another
yeah,
law
yeah, yeah,
series.
yeah. But yeah, essentially because the kind of translation was a rough ride. They had a lot of turbulence. When they actually kind of come back into real space, all the ships are spinning around and banging into each other, and all
Yeah.
these Iron Warrior commanders are basically like, "That guy over there is a dickhead. Give him a broadside."
Warsmith Derek to fucking take that motherfucker down.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
And then this literally like immediately stops when the Iron Blood breaks from the warp
Yeah.
because Perturabo, Daddy has
Daddy's
arrived
home.
and basically backhands them all
Yeah.
into stop fucking around. But then when you actually, I mean, when you actually think about this, like the resources that are lost just by blowing up your mate is like horrific before you've even started
Yeah. Yeah.
a
Yeah.
campaign.
Yeah.
It's funny, but I feel like it's a step too. I mean, the Iron Warriors are always written as being, bitter, aren't they? And bitter with each other and kind of trying to underhand each other
Yeah.
and get one up over each other. They don't like the warsmiths don't generally like each other.
hmm
But taking it to the point where they're just fucking destroying each other is a bit, I don't know.
Lack of foresight, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of enjoyed it, but I thought a bit like, would the Iron Warriors really do this? I mean, of all the traitor legions, the Iron Warriors at this point were one of the like more sensible ones. They hadn't
Yeah. Yeah.
they're still operating like a legion. Um so yeah, that felt a bit silly, but I kind of did like it. Um yeah. Anyways, the Iron Warriors first strike the undefended orbital refineries of Marad, shattering the position and using the gas giant to hide their approach and slingshot the fleet towards Talon. Uh, Talon's long degraded orbital platforms sit in silence as the fleet rips through the meager defensive pickets. Only the actions of the 71st Cinderborn Auxiliary on the main defensive platform, assuming control and taking the weapon systems online, prevent the Iron Warriors from sweeping in unopposed. So the 71st Cinderborn, I think, was one of these um, auxiliary units that had basically been disbanded there, I think, and then they
Right.
kind of reform. I can't really
Yeah.
entirely remember. There's a lot of different units fighting, but basically they they take control. They basically say we're in charge now. This is a military action. We're in charge. And they manage to switch on some of these defensive suites. But by the time they switch them on, the Iron Warriors they just don't care. They literally smash through. The warnings of Planet Strike are issued to the surface, guiding millions to the underground shelters, even as the Iron Warriors destroy the slow to awaken defensive weapon systems and fleets. Uh, Casimir Garson, Iron Warrior's commander, takes great joy in destroying the Lights of Inwit, the lone Imperial Fist frigate in orbit, as it attempts to escape to confer warning out of the system. So this was the last kind of warp capable
Yeah.
spaceship that had been recalled to Inwit. Um, and yeah, obviously the Iron Warriors took great relish in destroying that. Um, and I love this message that they get out. So the main defensive platform is the last to fall, and the 71st Cinderborn send the last message to the surface and their high command. And the message read, Messenger ship destroyed. Distress broadcast failed. Pilgrim's rest unreachable. No help is coming. Die well.
Yeah, it's just that's pretty awesome, isn't it? Yeah.
That's where you're like, oh, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
Why? Why did we have to live in Talon? And as one, without warning or provocation, thousands of Iron Warrior ships commence viral bombardment of the surface.
Yeah.
Um, and these
But
virus,
it's a different virus bomb, this one, isn't it?
yeah, so
Yeah.
this isn't the same as used by Horus at Istvan. So, kind of virus bombs used at Istvan, what they would do is they drop these bombs and it would kind of liquefy everything. And then this kind of liquefied biomass would give off kind of explosive gases, and then they drop just like regular ordnance, and then
Yeah. Like
basically it was like a firestorm,
Firestorm,
wasn't it?
wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
And then the whole world would just basically just be alight, like
Yeah.
flash over. The whole thing would just burst into flames.
And the benefit of that is that you actually kill the virus. Like the
So
virus
yeah, that's
disappears,
it.
right?
Yeah, and then you can just go down and kill the survivors. Whereas this viral bomb kind of just mutated, and it just
Yeah.
it turned everything into a biomass,
Lingers.
but it just stayed there, and it would well, like's written here, it turns the atmosphere into a corrosive soup that would eat through seals and respirators and remain in the atmosphere for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Very Death Guard this.
Um,
So this is a
it is, yeah.
yeah.
I feel almost like this would have been better off being given to the Death Guard. Yeah, but then I guess they didn't know what Perturabo knew. As the virus spreads, billions of innocent men, women, and children who didn't make it to the underground shelters die in frothing, bleeding agony.
Just like faces
Um,
melting. You know, I imagine it like with The Rock with Nicolas Cage, where one of those green like balls gets like and then, like your face like
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, something like
that.
that.
Again, that's a millennial reference. You'll only get that. Yeah.
There's a lot of people going, "What?
What?
The Rock?
Yeah.
You mean
People
the
in their
wrestler?
early 20s being like, "What? Excuse me? What's a
What's
Sean Connery and
what's
Nicolas
what's
Cage film?"
what's Dwayne Johnson got to do with it?" Within an hour of the bombardment beginning, Talon is a dead world. The great forests and
Yeah.
plains collapsed into swamps of decomposing matter, and the skeletons of dead trees. The seas choked with the rotted remains of the land, full of islands of floating dead. The cities are silent, marked only with the gore-coated bones of its populace jutting out of piles of putrescent ooze. Uh, And then producer Kerry wrote, "This book pulls no punches in explaining just how gruesome its fate is." Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and for those watching on YouTube, you can see what the planet looks like after the viral bombardment. So it's basically just, yeah,
It's
like
fucked, isn't it? Yeah.
it's basically
It's how I imagine Barbarous to look,
that's
actually.
what I was going to say. I was trying to think of the name of the word. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it's basically barbarous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, So, with the world dead, Perturabo gathers his most trusted commanders on the Ironblood to explain their presence. His mutated navigators, twisted by the warp jump after escaping the Eye of Terror and Fulgrim's machinations. You need to go and read Angel Exterminators to find out about that. Have told him of an arcane weapon of great powers hidden somewhere beneath the planet's surface that he can use to burn a path to Inwit.
So we don't, and we never find out what that weapon is, right?
Uh,
Or do we
Not
find
in
out?
this book. Not
Okay.
in this book. And I
Yeah.
don't think we ever. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I read the Talon book. But spoilers. I believe, if I remember correctly, it's basically a gateway
Right.
that allows. And at first, I thought it was a gateway, kind of like the Elder Webway, but I think
Hmm.
it's literally, and I think it does have like elder statues around it, if I remember
Right.
correctly. but it's
Right.
basically like you open it up and fucking demons pour out, basically.
Right. Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Um, if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure at the end of Talon, and this is a massive spoiler here, but at the end of the Talon books, uh, they send a handful of Contemptor dreadnoughts to find it because they don't know where it is. They're just looking.
Yeah.
And one of the Contemptors kind of talks to a demon, I think, or he finds this black oculus, and basically he destroys the area around it and buries it so it can't be found. Because
Right. Okay.
basically he realized that even though we're on the bad side, we don't want anything to do with these
With the shit.
dickheads.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Okay.
and I feel like this is kind of the great irony of the whole of Talon is they,
Yeah.
like even if you take away just murdering billions of people for no reason at all, like the amount of resources that are lost, tanks, manpower,
Yeah. Yeah. Was it worth it in the end? Yeah.
auxilia, titans, knights, all just to find it and go, nah, don't actually want it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, that,
Like,
isn't it?
it's
Yeah.
insane. But the main thing is that Perturabo doesn't actually know what it is.
No. 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 He just knows it's a
All he
weapon, right?
gets told is,
Yeah.
yeah, he can use it to burn a path to Indra.
He's such a sucker for that because
Well,
in
yeah,
Angels Exterminatus, that's exactly he exactly the same thing. Fulgrim's like, oh, there's this weapon on this thing. And he's like, oh, well, I don't really know what it is. I just know it's like a world killing weapon. Let's go find it.
and
And he goes,
Perturabo's
you
like,
much
oh,
brother.
world killing, you say?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a sucker for that. He's fucking loves
And I
it.
think also, yeah, because he thinks he can, his burning hatred of the Imperial Fists kind of, because
Yeah, it
Perturabo,
blinds
for all
him.
his, yeah, because
Yeah,
for all his downsides, he's one of the kind of tactical geniuses. He's the guy that can crack terror. You know what I mean? No one else could do that. He's the one that can crack terror. Yet he still, that burning hatred of Dawn, that kind of, I don't know what it is, like feeling of inferiority or wherever it comes from, just sends him absolutely down the rabbit hole. Um, but yeah, so we in this book we definitely don't find out what it is, and I could be wrong about what I've said, but I'm pretty
no,
sure
you're
it's
right. Okay,
basically
so
like a gateway.
this is what he's looking for. So it's a portal similar to the one at Molech, which will allow him to gain powers from the Chaos Gods. And it's
Okay,
called the Cursus of Alganar,
yeah,
and he
that's right.
does exactly right. He sends a dreadnought down, and the dreadnought is offered powers,
Yeah,
and he refuses it, and Perturabo does not get the power of the Cursus. At the same time, Horus rips into Argonis orders Perturabo to give up the siege. So yeah, so he was kind of luckily saved by the dreadnought, right? Bloody good
well,
guy, these
it's
ancient
I
dreadnoughts.
think I think the dreadnought basically acts how he thinks Perturabo would act.
Okay, yeah,
I
okay,
think he
interesting.
realizes like Perturabo would want nothing to do with these gods.
Yeah, yeah.
So actually, yeah, and then just
Well, that's a
just
massive
buries it.
spoiler for later on
Yeah,
if you
for
want.
for a book that's been out 15 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyways, the path died so he wouldn't have to suffer the acrimony or waste time conquering such a backwater world. So essentially, yeah, he viral bombed it because he couldn't be bothered with it. He just wanted to kill everyone
Get the good
and then
stuff.
go in
Yeah, get the
and get
weapon.
it. Um, which again, I struggle with a little bit because this is Perturabo. Like, I feel like he would have done his due diligence and realized that there is basically another world underneath this world.
Yeah.
And it was all signed off by Horus, so it's not like it's going to be hidden information. But anyways, half the Legion were to remain in orbit and repair the fleet, while the other half descend to the surface to search for the weapon. Codename Cursus.
Yep.
Or Cersus. Cersus? Cursus.
I would call it
Cersus.
curses, but curses.
Cursus.
Yeah.
With that, Perturabo retires to his quarters to ponder the events with Fulgrim on Lidris, not to be disturbed until Cursus is found, leaving Triarch Foryx in command. So yeah, so Perturabo is a bit miffed because Fulgrim basically used him to transfigure into a demon, and they had a big scrap. And he has to go and think about this and lock himself away and make some toys because that's what Perturabo does.
Yeah, curses. Do you want to know what it means in Latin?
Go on
Curses.
then.
It means direction, succession, or passage, or course. But
Ah,
yeah, so it's the cursus
interesting. So it's
is
a
a passage. Yeah,
passage.
yeah,
The Iron Warriors rushed to scale the surface, fearing their father's wrath and failure. So soon after the bombardment, the pathogens are highly concentrated, with even Terminator armor providing only very short protection. Instead, Thunderhawks and Stormbirds drop armored patrols to the surface. Their searches are focused on the Khedive Plateau and the area around the Sapphire City, now known as the Northern Desolation. Commander Garson, rewarded for destroying the light of Inwit, was given command of the search of the Northern Desolation. So yeah, so they literally just concentrate. Well, they're obviously one thing this book doesn't explain is obviously they're landing all over the planet, but
yeah.
this is the area where they're
That
concentrating their
yeah.
search.
It's interesting just to say on this back, but if we just go back to the map there,
Oh,
they do create a number of their own fortresses, right? Of which to kind of like sally out of to be able to find these things.
yeah, I mean that's a standard Iron Warrior SOB, isn't it?
Yeah,
SOP. Uh, like they will land in, and I think what was it? One of the Istavans where they basically land in rhinos and then the rhinos turn into a fortress. They drive all the rhinos together, don't they? And then these armored sides come down and basically the
yeah.
rhinos become a
I
fortress.
think that might have been on Sarum. I think it was Sarum when they had
I
to go get Angrum.
thought it was Istavan
Somebody can correct us in the comments below.
where they
Maybe they do it on both. Maybe it's as simple as that.
yeah, I can't remember now. But yeah, that's what they do, isn't it? They land in somewhere, they set up fortifications, and then they will patrol from those fortifications. It's generally how they operate. They're not like the White Scars that will just fly around and not
Yeah,
care. They'll
yeah.
have their base as an area of operations. Um, so 8 weeks of fruitless searching later, tempers are fraying. The different Iron Warriors detachments have come to blows more than once, and the risk of all-out infighting is boiling beneath the surface. So again, we've kind of got this like ongoing hatred of each kind of grand battalion, and the Warsmiths are just kind of because Daddy's gone back into his man cave,
Hmm.
and now all the kids are just squabbling amongst each other. Over the last few weeks, Iron Warriors had picked up isolated vox chatter from the odd lone civilian vehicle, assumed to be isolated incursions from a few desperate survivors. So when a dozen signals are detected in the heart of the Sapphire City, a small Iron Warrior detachment, including Garson's own command tank, sets out to intercept. Squads of Spartans, Kratos, Predators, and Sicaran scour the city, now partially sunken into the rotting sea, finding groups of Aurochs and heavy sentinels calling out on the Vox. The enemy attempts to flee and is all but destroyed, drawing the Iron Warriors' tanks out into the open. So this is essentially like the survivors that have all hidden in these bunkers, and obviously all these bunkers are scattered across the planet. Weeks later, they're now kind of starting to creep out and have a little nosy about, see what's going on. And the first thing they see is a bunch of dickhead Iron Warriors.
Well, I think that this was a, a plan all along. I think they're bait. I think that they're designed to um, kind of lure them in because of what happens next.
So I would agree with you, but it is extensively written that all
Oh,
the
it's not.
loyalists,
Hmm.
well, not that, that's not, but that the loyalists were kind of, so they were all splintered groups. They were all
Oh,
different
okay,
groups.
interesting.
And it was a bit like what we've read with like the Beta Garmin and that. Everyone wanted to be in charge and no one was in charge.
Hmm.
So no one was coming up with grand strategies. No one, even within the different shelters in Sapphire City, they were kind of doing their own things. So I don't think they were organized enough. I honestly just think they didn't know what was out there. I think they
Well,
didn't.
let's read the next bit and find out.
As the Iron Warriors tank commanders gloat in their slaughter, the first Legion vehicles suddenly detonate. Vanquisher and Executioner Cannon Leman Russ emerge from their concealed position, striking into their unsuspecting foe. Okay, so I take that all back.
So, and also, it's not just to say it's the it's not the first Legion. It is the Iron Warriors like Legion tanks are. being blown up, not
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah. As it,
Dark
there's
Angels don't appear
no,
from
yeah,
like
yeah,
there. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The first
It's
Iron
not a
Warriors
capital,
vehicles.
not a capital F there. It's just
Vanquisher and Executioner cannon, Leman Russ emerge from their concealed position, striking into unsuspecting foes. Painted in teal and maroon, hastily refitted and covering old insignia. These are the Talon Reborn, solo auxiliary
yeah,
regiments.
fuck yeah,
The Talon Reborn consisted of 1 billion survivors who made it to the underground shelters, packed up with a core of former 71st Auxiliary veterans who had been retired to Talon following their service, led by former cohort commander Jasira Sonoval. They had spent weeks training militia reservists to form huge armored cohorts of tanks, each manned by a veteran running a crew of newly retrained second line auxiliaries. So yeah, basically what they did is each tank had basically these fucking idiots, and
yeah.
then they put a veteran in charge of each
Yeah,
tank.
well, I mean, idiots. I mean, brave heroes. I think is what you mean. Who, but they are noobs, aren't they?
No,
They're raw recruits.
I think I'd say more survivors who
Yes.
actually have
Yeah.
no other choice but
Yeah.
to fight or die.
Yeah.
Um, Fire pours into the Iron Warriors, hoping to disrupt them, but their discipline in return fire reaps a heavy toll. Troops in power armor spill out of doomed vehicles, knowing their armor will only protect them for seconds, but
Yeah.
long enough to attack with grenades and melter bombs.
Yeah. So this is also interesting because I had assumed that power armor would be able to, um, you would be able to walk around Talon in power armor, but actually you
No,
don't have. It's literally
no,
seconds. It's a
yeah.
suicide run, basically. They're like, boop, boop, boop,
So
boop, boop, boop.
So in the Talon trilogies, it talks about, and it doesn't call them Solar Auxilia, but they're essentially equipped like Solar Auxilia.
Yeah.
You literally have seconds
Right.
out in there. So there's a scene where a load of them run from like a tank into a building, and like half of them don't make it because their sills have melted by the
Right.
time they get there. And the guy in power armor makes it, but he's like, "Whew, fuck, that was close."
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Terminators can kind of last a little bit longer, but even Terminators will eventually, the seals will just
Degrade.
dissolve. Yeah.
Soft armor. That's the problem. Soft armor joints, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I do like the idea. And this is the difference, I guess, between, humans. Like all you have to do is put a tiny little hole in a tank and they're all dead.
Yeah.
Whereas you put a hole in a tank of Iron Warriors, then one of them's going to run out and slap a melter bomb on your tank.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah. Yeah.
guess that is the difference. Athean Sentinels use their maneuverability to close on the enemy, while entire squadrons of Vanquishers concentrate fire on single Kratos at a time to ensure destruction. Of the 5 Iron Warrior forces, 4 are forced to retreat before being caught by concealed tarantula weapon platforms.
Well,
So yeah, so
must have had a lot
essentially,
of them because we know they aren't that good. BS.
uh,
And are they
yeah,
Mechanicum ones or are they normal Legion ones? Yeah.
yeah. I hope they're not mechanical ones.
Yeah.
Commander Garson and his divisions are attacked by huge forces of Valdors, Malcadors, and Commander Sanoval's own Stormblade. Um, all Garson could do was order the retreat, losing tanks by the score, sacrificing his armored companies to buy him time to escape. However,
Now,
when he discovered, yeah,
sorry, I was just going to say the one thing we haven't. So, it, as you mentioned before, this is a mustering world, isn't it? So, if you're there, kind of scratching your head, thinking, how did they get all these tanks into these underground complexes? Like, and where are these coming from? They're already there. So
yeah,
we'll look at it a little bit later. But the book basically alludes to the fact that from the point that Horace becomes War Master, and particularly from the point of Isfahan onwards, a lot of resources is being poured into Talon, and a lot of tanks is being poured into Talon and equipment that kind of suggesting that Horace will be able to use those things later on. The problem is that now with all the survivors going down into the underground complexes, they can use everything that was poured into this world previously, but also what Horace has put in there as well. So there
yeah.
is a lot of material that the billion survivors can now use.
And it's also mentioned that a lot of the militia and solar auxiliary units that have been garrisoned there, um, their loyalties were potentially not with the Imperium.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
they could have easily been swayed, which I feel like that's any kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
militia unit.
yeah.
But essentially, these units that were put there would have probably sided with Horus, but their
but the
hand was
Iron Warriors
forced. Yeah.
because because like that's really interesting. Yeah, and
So
unforeseen consequences. Yeah,
yeah, by
yeah,
doing this, he's actually, if they turned up and said, "Hi, we're the Iron Warriors.
yeah,
Do you want to come fight with us?" They'd have probably been like, "Sure."
yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Whereas actually, they just turned up and turned everything to fucking mush.
Poor form again from the Iron
Yeah,
Warriors. Yeah,
yeah, but then I guess
sorry.
the
Yeah,
Iron Warriors aren't known for their diplomacy.
I guess not. No. Cool. Okay.
Um,
Anyway, as you were, as you were.
so Garson discovers a treat is impossible. He reluctantly signals the other Iron Warrior battalions for aid. His brothers send aid the Iron Warrior way.
It's so good.
Mass, massed rolling, indiscriminate artillery barrage bombarding and flattening his marked coordinates. Garson meets his end
Send help!
amongst
Send
the
help!
ensuing firestorm.
Love it.
So yeah, so basically, yeah, you're entirely right. Like I'd completely forgotten about this part. So they set up ambushes, and this is essentially the way the Talons fight, pretty much all the way up to the Sapphire,
Yeah,
the Battle of the Sapphire City. Is they are literally just set up ambushes. They know they can't fight the Iron Warriors one on one. So it's very much kind of strike and fade, like hit a target and then get the fuck out of there before they
yeah,
come after you. Um, but yeah, I love this. Yeah, his brothers just flatten everything
yeah. It's brilliant.
around his coordinates. The first open conflict of the Battle of Tallarn destroys over 1,000 Iron Warriors vehicles in 2 hours, though Loyalists lose a similar number. The Iron Warriors land thousands more tanks, and Loyalist ambushes grow more desperate and less effective as artillery fire raptors and terminators crush the resistance. So, I mean, this is the thing, and this is what I do like about this book is, they weren't expecting any resistance, and then they got a hell of a lot of resistance.
Yeah, and then they're
The
caught in the grinder,
resistance
aren't they? That's the problem.
And then there's still Astartes, so the
Yeah,
resistance becomes less effective. You can only ambush someone so many times before
yeah,
they work out what you're up
yeah,
to. Um, so yeah, but the Iron Warriors got a bloody nose.
yeah,
Did not go their way.
yeah. And the commander of the forces looking for the cursus has actually
It's
been killed
by
by
his
other
own
Iron Warriors, but
by
he's
his
been
own troop,
killed. Yeah,
which is fucking brilliant. Days turn to weeks, and the loyalists increasingly understand they have no chance of winning without something radically changing. Worse, the Iron Warrior patrols are getting closer to finding the hidden entrances to their underground fortresses. 61 days after the initial bombardment begins, a patrol from a tiny shelter housing a lone surviving astropath ventures out. The sole survivor of the choir by chance and fluke immediately starts announcing his position to all who would hear it. So, one thing we haven't mentioned is the astropath choir was killed like immediately.
yeah,
So when they destroyed the Imperial Fist ship, that was the last warp-capable ship. So that's the last ship that could get out of the system to warn people.
yeah,
They also killed the choir, so there is no messages getting off. There is literally happens to be one astropath left alive on the
yeah,
entire planet.
yeah,
And there's a really good short story that's part of the Talon trilogy about um, about how he's rescued. The race is on between loyalists and traitors seeking to use his voice or silence him. A division of the Talon Reborn, alongside Marshal Lycus, the only surviving Imperial Fist on the planet, reach him first and deliver a message to broadcast to the stars, even as the Iron Warrior Terminators tear their way into the shelter. Yeah, so this was the bit I was talking about. So
yeah.
they're in the back of a tank, racing to this place where this astropath is, and they run out, and yeah, literally, the Imperial Fist dude is like one of the only guys to make it to the
Right. Okay.
building because all the other guys just fucking melt.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a really cool story. 93 days after the Iron Warriors' arrival, the first Loyalist fleets erupt from the warp. So relief. So the Loyalists arrive piecemeal, easy prey for the larger unified Iron Warrior fleet. However, so many arrive from hundreds of vectors, it's impossible to intercept them all. So yeah, essentially, the Iron Warriors um, just can't blockade the entire planet. Um, and this is a lot like what we've read in a lot of the other lore stories we've done, like Beta Garmin and that, where essentially as soon as the signal's gone out for help, there's so many different small groups of people floating about in space that they all just suddenly head for that. Um, But this is the fucking awful bit of this. So the first loyalist landings knew nothing of the toxic atmosphere, exposing thousands of unprotected troops to the poison before reaching the ground, just to empty holds full of rotten, decomposing reinforcements. So there's loads of these landers coming in. They're opening up their kind of, uh, exit ramps, and it's just like ooze pouring out as they've all been fucking
Yeah, yeah.
liquefied. Later drops are forewarned, and loyalist forces successfully make landfall. First contact between Talon survivors and reinforcement comes when a detachment of Free Blade Knights rescues Marshal Sunnival and her armored cohort from the Iron Warriors, crushing the traitors with thermal lance and chainblade. The Iron Warriors' forces are forced to withdraw to their armored fortresses across the northern desolate as they encounter more and more loyalists. So at this point, it's really not going well for the Iron Warriors. With the Iron Warriors beaten back to drop ships and more loyalists landing, the great underground fortresses of the Sapphire City take a huge gamble and activate their transponder beacons, lighting up their hidden entrances to the arriving relief forces, but also revealing them to the Iron Warrior forces. Um, And it should be noted that it is literally within the Sapphire City. There's obviously other underground fortresses that don't do this because they realize that it's silly. So there are ones that just send out scout troops that are like, hey, who are you? Okay, we live here. But for some reason in the Sapphire City, they light up all their transponder beacons. So now the Iron Warriors know exactly where they are. Loyalists arrive with each coming day. Legion Gryphonicus lands a maniple of Titans on the northern desolation alongside armoured forces of White Scars, all without Brotherhood markings, presumably Sagamazan. In response, Perturabo returns from his seclusion. Daddy is pissed. Despite having enough infantry to conquer the world, he can no longer use them because of the poison nature of the
Yeah,
planet. Oh, the irony.
yeah.
He cannot risk open bombardment in case he damages the curses. Instead, he plans to do the most Iron Warrior thing possible, build a massive, impenetrable fortress and sally forth, crushing everything beneath his boot, which I fucking love. I do like that. It's just the Iron Warrior way. It's like
Yeah,
there's no finesse. It's just we're just going to go down there and we're going to crush everything.
100%.
The Sapphire City is chosen as the site of his muster, destroying both the Loyalist strongholds and providing his base of operation in a single action. The Iron Warrior fleet takes up position above the city and begins ferrying everything that can fight down to the area, a few kilometers from the city, while the fleet bombards the city to destroy the Loyalist terrain advantage and hide the mass landings. So it should be said at this point, like the Iron Warrior fleet obviously converges above Sapphire City, and this is the point where the Loyalist fleets just have to fuck off, basically, because there's just not enough of them to take on the Iron Warriors. So the fleets that are kind of landing Loyalist reinforcements just basically has to dodge. The massive singular force of Iron Warriors fell under the singular command of Cyrus Strux. Sounds like a rapper's name or something, doesn't it? Meanwhile, the Loyalist force was divided, with dozens of individual commanders and marshals claiming control and bickering in the dark below the city, making no plans or actions. So this is what I was talking about. So there's not actually one person in charge of
Yeah.
Loyalist forces, and much like we've seen in a lot of these other kind of stories, is basically nothing really happens because they're too busy like having a cock off. The second the bombardment ceases, the sally ports open and cohort marshal Sanaval moves out, the suffering ghost solar cohorts, followed by Vox transmissions, admonishing her for taking charge. So basically, she's had enough of their bullshit, and she's like, I'm going to go out and fight them. If anyone wants to join me, let's fucking do this. And she kind of forces the hands of all the other commanders. The
Andrew
ghost.
and Andrew Tate's worst nightmare, a strong, independent-minded woman.
He would definitely be cowering somewhere, wouldn't he? The ghosts take up forward concealed posts again as the Loyalist command unifies and tens of thousands of engines fire up in the dark under the city. Sandoval voxes the other stations with simple orders. Get all combat ready forces to the surface immediately to fight their way out or get trapped in the tunnels below. So, yeah, again, she realizes like if you stay here, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Like the Iron Warriors are coming, you will die. So, essentially, her plan was a load of us fight and then a load of us just run away. The tanks that emerged from Row West Shelter set their auspexes out towards the seashore, calibrated for detecting incoming tanks. They're immediately burnt out and blinded, not by tank returns, but instead by full intensity Titan grade
Ooh.
auspexes. Moments later, the first Titans emerge from the fog. I just love this. I just
Mm.
imagine this like you could imagine it in a film, couldn't you? Like this
Yeah.
like dude looking through these like
Yeah, it's
through
interesting
the
as well, I would say, with this, because doing the research for this, I was a bit like, you cannot, the scale of this conflict, it cannot be appropriately um, represented by a 3K versus 3K army. Like, this is what
no, no.
Legions
Yeah, this
Imperialis
is
was made for. Kind of like that combined arms of like Titans and
yeah.
Soda
Yeah.
and Legion forces. Um, and yeah, I just reading it, I was like, oh, there's no way that a 3K game could ever convey just like the
No.
immensity of what was about to take
And
place.
again, I think it's actually kind of hard just to again, like we talk about this before in a lot of these law shows we've done, is it's actually for our tiny little human brain, it's hard to actually imagine. I
Yeah.
mean, you're talking tens of thousands of tanks coming out of these
Yeah,
shelters. And in the book, it actually describes it takes so long for these tanks to come out because there's so many of them
yeah,
and there's only so much space to drive them out.
yeah,
But you know, when they talk about 1,000 tanks were lost by the Iron Warriors, that's just like that's a tiny little dent. This is the entire Legion that's turned up. Um, but yeah, going back to this, I love this. I can just imagine in the film, you know, some nervous Solar Auxilia dude looking through his uh, you know, gun aiming thing, and just all you see is like this brown, you know, sky, and then all of a
yeah.
sudden there's something moving through it, and brrr, fucking Titan steps out from the
100%.
fog. And this again is something that's not massively mentioned in this book, but it is talked about in great detail in the trilogy. Is essentially the way they fight because you couldn't see anything. You had to use your auspexes to find tanks.
Yeah,
But the more you use your auspexes, it's almost the way I imagine it is a bit like submarines. Like the more kind of electrical stuff you use, the more of a signal you give out that your tank's there.
yeah,
So a lot of the time when these were setting up ambushes, they'd drive into their ambush and they'd switch everything off and just keep it running over. So just like the I mean, obviously they couldn't switch it off because all the fog would come in and kill them, but literally they would just keep the kind of life-saving equipment turning over,
yeah,
and then everything else they would switch off,
mm,
and they would have their auspexes turned down as low as they could, just enough to see a tank.
yeah,
Um, and that's one thing that is good in the trilogy is you get this real feeling of kind of almost claustrophobia of like fighting in this environment of you can't see anything. And actually the reason you can't see anything is because the fog will fucking murder you the
yeah,
second it
yeah,
gets into the tank.
yeah,
But anyways, yeah, so a pair of Reavers and Warhounds of Legio Krytos destroy every tank that emerges from the shelters. Frantic Vox speaks of an immense shape still lurking in the fog before catastrophic weaponry smashes the Row West shelter entrance. Row West and all within die as the bulkheads and seals collapse and flood the vaults. So literally within minutes
yeah. It hasn't
of
gone well
them
for the loyalists there, has it?
coming out to fight, they've lost one of these shelters immediately.
Fish in a barrel. Yeah.
And it's literally describes these titans just fucking stamping on hundreds, and
Yeah.
they're not even shooting them at one point, they're just stamping on
Yeah.
them. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool. The ghosts continue to hide, collapsing buildings onto themselves to hide their tanks under the rubble. As the transmission to the row west shelter cease and row north is lost to interference, they continue to hold and hide. The first armor to appear was not the Iron Warriors or the Seleucid Thoracite, but instead the Galabed Oathsworn, indentured solar auxilia for the Iron Warriors. So now this is a new one that I've not heard about before. We've heard of the Thoracite, they're kind of
Yeah.
Olympia raised solar auxilia unit that are attached, basically, yeah, attached to the
Yes,
Iron
the Iron
Warriors.
Warriors. Yeah.
And we've got color plates for them and a little bit. But the Galabad Oathsworn, this is literally the first I've ever heard of them. And
Yeah.
I did a very quick Google search and could find nothing about them. But from what I get from the very little that's written about them in this book is they seem to be very much more siege orientated
Right.
than a fairly standard solar auxiliary
Yeah.
force. But that is just what I read between the lines. The hidden loyalists wait in silence, fingers poised over firing stubs, letting them pass by, sometimes only meters apart. And it actually describes at one point they actually uh, blow up a tank. The Galabed Oathsworn shoot some like a half collapsed building, and it blows up one of these tanks that are hiding in ambush. And so they all stop because they're obviously when it goes bang, they're all like, "Oh, the fuck was
Fuck.
that?"
Yeah.
And they're like, was that a tank or was that just some munitions left
Yeah.
over from our bombardment?" And again, this was a bit of the book that I'm like, oh, I don't like this bit because they stop, they have a look, they can't see anything, and they keep driving. Whereas, let's face it, if you were thought that there were people waiting, hiding for you, you just fire everything you had to see if anything else goes bang, and then
Yeah.
you'd keep moving. You know,
Yeah.
uh,
I suppose it's to
reconnaissance.
build suspense, though, isn't it? I
Well,
suppose.
I get it, but it's like, oh, come on, reconnaissance by fire is a thing. You can
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
shoot at something and see if something's there. But anyways, they don't. They keep driving and they drive through this loyalist line, exposing their rear armor. And the vulnerable second line of artillery tanks comes into range. So behind this front line of Galabad Oathsworn is a second line of artillery tanks, which again I like. I love the thematic idea of that of having these kind of armored infantry followed up and tanks followed up by artillery tanks. All along the 20-kilometer line of loyalist tanks, they open fire at once, smashing into the vulnerable traitors. With the exception of a few small regions of the line, the Galabad are all but wiped out. Oh no.
Okay, so the loyalists. So it's 1-1 now. So
Yeah,
the Titans destroyed loads of tanks at Row West, and then these
but
guys have taken out the Galabed.
But it's interesting because as I was reading this, I was like, oh, this is classic Iron Warriors, isn't it? They've sent the humans in. The humans have all died, but now the Iron
Know
Warriors
where
know
they are. Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
where the Loyalists are. Even as the Loyalists savor their victory, the Auspexes light up with the second wave of incoming
Yeah.
traitors. Oh no.
Yeah.
Squadrons of Sicarans and talons of dreadnoughts that sat and let their indentured allies die start to move in.
Classic.
Rather than the usual fire and fade tactics, the line holds place, pledging to hold back the traitors whatever the cost. Well, I mean, they've got nowhere to run back to now. Uh, the Iron Warriors rip through the loyalist lines, content to just breach crew compartments and let the atmosphere finish the job. So they're not even trying to destroy the tanks now. You can just imagine, content is just like, well, if I just gouge a hole in this tank, they're all dead anyways. I don't
Yeah.
need to spend
Yeah.
5 minutes pulverizing the thing.
Mhm.
In less than 30 minutes, 100,000 fighting men and women, strong loyalist auxilia, are all but destroyed. The only places the auxiliary are able to escape are when the White Scar forces flank in. Assault Marines leaping down from strafing Storm Eagles and the mud-choked automata of the Tagmata Zelf crawl out of the sewers to tear into the Iron Warriors. So again, this was another bit that I mentioned before where the White Scars keep using Assault Marines.
Yeah.
But in all the previous fluff, like Assault Marines, probably by the time they've jumped out of the Storm Eagle, landed on the ground, they're probably already starting to choke to death. So
Yeah.
So that was one
The
bit.
only thing I can think of is that in the book that it does describe that there are different, like almost like hotspots of,
Yeah,
you know
but
what I mean, like hotspots
yeah,
of
yeah,
like how
yeah.
bad the virus is.
Well, it describes one part where the land is raised slightly, so the
Mhm.
loyalist infantry were able to just come out and fight because they're
Mhm.
slightly above.
Yeah.
Which again, I get, but I find it a little bit silly because the whole atmosphere is just this
Yeah.
horrific fog, and then all of a sudden there just happens to be one bit where they can just go and fight.
Yeah, go fight,
Um,
yeah.
but I don't hate it. Um, and if these are Sagamazan, then they don't really care anyways.
No, I
They're
suppose
gonna
that's it. They
they're
don't need to
gonna
go
die.
back, do they? Yeah.
So I don't hate that, but I just read it and I was like, it kind of goes a little bit against what
Yeah.
I've read previously. Uh, the surface of uh, sorry, the sacrifice of the Sapphirine ghosts brought enough time for more of the Loyalist armor to reach the surface. Tens of thousands of tanks now stand in a 40-kilometer long line as more reach the surface every minute, slowed only by the shelters, lift, and airlock systems. The Iron Warriors encounter this line not as a single mass, but several arrow point wedges, each fronted by Kratos, flanked by Sakaran, and guiding a massive artillery and vindicator. The clashes they clash only a few kilometers from the entrance to the shelters, with the Loyalists' only defense to commit ever more tanks into the battle. So again, like I mentioned already, like it's just a constant stream of reinforcements pouring out of these shelters. These are like, kilometers and kilometers of warehouses and tunnels and um like storage facilities. In the center of the line, Warsmith Strux leads an armored sentry fronted by seven Fellblades in unison.
Oh,
That's
this is
so
it.
fucking
This is it.
cool.
You can't like,
Seven Fellblades.
yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? You can't do this with a normal Age of
And I
Darkness
think
army.
even if you wanted to do this battle as a Legion Imperialis, you'd probably be looking at a huge
Yeah.
table and it'd take you a week to play it.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the Loyalists so packed in, there is no room to maneuver as they desperately try to stop Strux reaching the entrance to the Omicron North Shelter. Um, The traitor engines of Legio Krytos continue their move from the south, not to be slowed by the sunken mass of decaying farmland, easily sweeping aside loyalist tank commons that try to flank the Iron Warrior advance. So yeah, the Legio are in the south of the city, and this is basically where the ocean was that's now just like
Just gone, isn't it? Yeah.
just soup, basically, yeah. And it talks about the south of the city is kind of flooded by this soup. The first Loyalist engine kills come when concentrated Rust firepower drops a Krytos Warhound's voids, and a trio of concealed shadow swords fire as one, detonating the Warhound.
Yeah.
So I really like the way it describes the shadow swords because it's exactly how you'd imagine them fighting. They basically kind of because shadow swords are Titan killers.
Yeah.
And they basically kind of keep creeping forward through the ruins of these buildings, fire, and then they withdraw to hide back whilst other tanks kind of knock down the shields. And then once the shields have been dropped, they'll pop out again and shoot into the Titans. As the fighting in the city itself ground into a bloody, smoke-choked stalemate, the forces at the flanks made the most advances. In the south, the Titan-killing tridents of the Solar Auxiliary Super Heavies are now exposed, and Legio Krytos is free to concentrate fire on them, finally being joined by the Typhoeus, a War Master-class Titan. In the north, the traitor Mechanicum
Oh
advance
boy.
was stopped by the hit and run tactics and sacrifice of the White Scars, the Brotherhood of the Forsworn.
Well, with a name like that, they're definitely saggy as that, aren't they?
Yeah, and it talks a lot about their using kind of predator tanks just to kind of hit and run,
Yeah.
which is very White Scars and very cool. Um, with the Pi North shelter spared by the White Scars' actions, they resume bringing up yet more armor. So again, all the while this is going on, more and more reinforcements are pouring out from the Loyalist shelters. Rather than blindly charging into the fray, they race east towards another shelter at the order of Marshal Sandoval, who had survived the first battle after being recalled from the front lines due to her earlier disobedience, marshalling for an inevitable counterattack. Meanwhile, the Iron Warriors have swarmed the Row West shelter after Legio Krytos ripped it open earlier, and are using it for an underground marshalling point, attacking the other shelters through an underground tunnel and
Ooh,
termite assault.
clever, clever.
So
Yes.
this is the bit that you could probably get away with playing
Yeah.
Age of Darkness. They basically get into the shelter and then it's like Zone Mortalis.
Yeah. And they use it as a staging point to get to other shelters, right?
Yeah,
It's all
yeah.
connected. Yeah.
In many of the shelters, auxiliary Velataris stand waiting in the dark, watching seismic readouts of the incoming Wire Warriors assault, knowing it means almost certain death.
Jesus. Yeah.
Um,
Because
but again,
this is their and this is the advantage that they have, like legions against men. I mean, I still maintain that you in a tank battle, you're fairly you're more balanced than you would ever be with a marine against a human. Whereas this is it
yeah,
is
yeah,
you're gonna die against the marines.
yeah, yeah, totally. And especially as the kind of main tanks they're using aren't your. I mean, they're using a lot of Spartans and Land
Yeah,
Raiders, but a lot of it is kind of predators.
yeah,
You know, they're not as heavily armored
yeah,
as say Lehman Russes.
yeah,
And it does describe a bit about the tanks in the book, and it talks about, the lighter armor of like the Predators was outweighed by the fact that they're driven by Space Marines.
yeah,
So they're just better at everything. Um, but then Velataris, Zone Mortalis, this is
yeah, yeah.
kind of their
Their
bread
jam,
and
isn't it?
butter.
Yeah,
Although they realize that, all right, this is what we do, but we're going against Astartes here. And
yeah.
it describes kind of breacher units moving through. So it's never going to be a good day, is it?
Nope.
With all the war raging, a 20-kilometer length of the line remains eerily quiet. As the Loyalist lines wait, the battle rages either side of them, until thousands more battered tanks in Loyalist colours emerge from the fog, claiming to be falling back from the fight. With Fox interference and using stolen Vox idents, most are allowed to cross Loyalist lines with no issue, though in some places, itchy trigger fingers open fire anyway. Once they pass the Loyalist lines, these isolated companies form up, as if they are going to rejoin the line, before they open fire as one into the rear armor of the defenders.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
It was a
After the
trap.
It's a trap. After the war was finished, such actions were traced to Alpha Legion infiltrators,
Classic.
possibly operating on the planet long before the Iron Warriors ever entered the system.
Classic.
Um, yeah, and I like this as well because it shows the confusion, the kind of fog of war. I mean, it is literally a fog of war.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, we've got these human tanks that are coming back to us, and they're saying they're on our side. So you would just let them in, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they form up and start shooting you in
In the
the
rear armor,
rear.
which we all know
Oh,
is the
no.
weakest.
Uh, yeah, this pesky Alpha Legion.
Yeah.
The battle has by this point swung violently against the Loyalists. The centre of the line is destroyed. The south has collapsed as Iron Warriors, Mastodons, and Spartans crossed the sea behind the Titans and disgorged Terminators into the Solar Auxiliary. So again, I love how it described this. So the Mastodons and Spartans were loaded onto these like spider crawlers
Hmm.
that then crawled along the bottom of the sea and then kind of gorged them out once they got to the to surface.
Yeah.
So they're kind of coming in from the south. Traitor advances above and below ground now threaten all but one of the remaining shelters. Only Omicron South remains inviolate, relying on extensive Vox checks to protect from any concealed traitors, as any retreating forces marshal in the area. Commanders, including Marshal Sonoval, turn their attention now not in resisting for the city, as they know it is lost, but to
Yeah.
getting as many forces out, running the gauntlet of Iron Warriors to the north and Legio Krytos to the south. Through Vox, word of mouth, or any other means, the retreat order is given. Any and all armor that can is to form up around a few untouched vaults with a simple order. Load up as much as they can before they leave in 2 hours. And this is the thing as well. Like, yes, you can run away, but where are you running away to? You need to
Yeah.
know where you're going. And it describes, I don't know if we'll mention it later on, but a lot of these tanks just simply run out of fuel.
Yeah.
And then your machines shut down and then you die
And you
because
die. Yeah. Yeah.
of
No
the
extraction
toxic.
fans. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So it's like literally the most grim, dark thing of like you stay, you die, you go. You're
You die.
probably gonna die as
Yeah.
well. Those that cannot withdraw can only delay the enemy and sell their lives at the highest cost they can. White Scars to the north and Tagmata to the south managed to disengage, but precious few of the tanks in the city managed to disengage.
Yeah.
Warsmith Strux has his prize. What little remains of the Sapphire City now belongs to the Iron Warriors, but he remains unsatisfied. Escaping forces could still be a thorn in the Legion's plans, or warn other loyalists what occurred. The escaping loyalists set out, dogged at every step by traitor auxilia. As they retreat, descending spacecraft in their path convince many of the imminent doom. Oh God, here we go. Instead, the arrival of Imperial fists
Yeah,
and
boy.
Legio Gryphonicus cover the retreat.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I mean, it's a good idea, by the way, where it's basically stop everyone escaping so they don't know that we've set up this base here. Kill everyone, and then just as they're about to do it, those goddamn Imperial fists land,
So
and
pesky. Such a
essentially
Deus Ex Machina, this, isn't it?
they were kind of sent from Inwit because Inwit
Yeah.
doesn't want to give up forces, much like what happens in Terra and Beta Garmin. They don't want to give up forces because
Yeah.
they need to protect their planets, but also they know that if Talon kind of falls, then they're probably next. So they send a force of I think about 7,000 Imperial Fists, um, who just happen to arrive in time to save these dickheads.
Yeah, boy.
Um, Very Hollywood. Tens of thousands of loyalist tanks make for neighboring shelters while many break down or run out of fuel on the way, condemning their crew. Around them, the planet is changing again. The massed seas and puddles of decomposing matter are starting to dry out, scabbing over into a thin crust over deep ravines, trapping and killing many more. So yeah, this is the thing. Like it, as the fog clears, the sun starts to hit the surface, and this kind of like well, they describe it as soup. This kind of like biomass starts to harden, and then yeah, you can drive over it, and then all of a sudden your tank disappears, and you're dropping into a deep
Yeah.
ravine. So a lot of people are kind of trapped and killed that way. Meanwhile, blood squalls start to form, massive superstorms of concentrated corrosive fog that can eat through even the toughest of protection. As the sunlight hits the planet's surface for the first time in months, the war for Talon has only just begun. And we finish with this quote. Talon died for nothing, its death throes drawing in billions to the slaughter and echoing outwards to unleash carnage across hundreds of surrounding worlds in kind. Here had all the sins of the Imperium come home to roost, a revenant of the Great Crusade's most heinous crimes made manifest in a crucible of bloodshed and misery. And I mean, that sums it up really. Like, there's all this death and carnage, uh, and it doesn't really achieve anything because the thing they set out to find, Perturabo didn't really know what it was. He just got told, "Oh, you'll be able to destroy the Imperial fists of it," and that was enough. He was off, gone. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
just kind of the whole thing was a bit foolish. And actually, if you'd sent, I don't know. I mean, obviously, Perturabo was working off his own back because this was post having a scrap with Fulgrim. But well, let's see what's been written here. Something the book hints around is exactly why Talon is so stocked to the brim in armor and forces to operate them. For years, new armor and war material has arrived on Talon with no reasoning other than filling the underground shelters of this forgotten planet. However, the build-up of weapons began soon after Horus was named War Master, and accelerated in the last few years before Istvan. Was Horus planning and building a huge war chest so close to Inwit and the approaches to the solar system before an unknown Perturabo put the world to the sword and had that same war force turned against him? So yeah, I think this is actually quite cool because this is something that hasn't, or I don't remember being mentioned in the Talon books. In the Talon books, the Black Library books, it literally just kind of mentions that they've been forgotten about,
Hmm.
and they all kind of feel like they're just there, twiddling their thumbs, and they're all kind of expecting like, oh, any minute now we'll go off into the Great Crusade and this and
Hmm.
that, and then they're just kind of not. Whereas this goes some way to explaining just why
Yeah.
there was such a huge stockpile of people and weapons. And then the
Yeah.
irony is like there's most great ironies in like
Those weapons were
Horus
turned
Heresy.
against them, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And again, like I was going to say, if Horus had probably sent like a delegate from the Sons of Horus and said, right, you're all on our side now, we're going to go fight Imwit, they probably would have.
yeah, yeah.
From what we know, they probably would have. But no, Perturabo turned up and turned it into a viral fucking death world.
Wasteland, yeah. So we do have part two to do at some point, which will be like the second half, which will be the Death of Talon, which will be, I guess it could also be called the Loyalist Strike Back. Now that they are reinforced with the Gryphonicus and the Imperial Fist, and we shall see whether or not Perturabo finds the Cursus.
I kind of talked
Um,
about it, so
yeah, he doesn't basically. Um, but we will see what happens and why they are forced to withdraw from Talon, whether it's orders from Horus or whether it's just because they're losing, etc. So we will do that at some point. That will come probably, I suspect, when that book comes out. So that might be expect that in 2025. But in the meantime, we have got more law videos coming for you, and of course we've had the Martian Civil War book. So we will be doing. I'm sure me and Lee will be doing a law video about the Martian Civil War book, and the Dark Mechanicum from there as well. So expect those law videos to be coming soon. But for the main segment of the show, that's it. So thanks for taking us through that, Lee. Another tour
oh,
de
thank
force. It
you.
was great. I tell you what. Actually, knowing what I know now from there, it will be great to go back and read those Talon books to put it in the context of kind of like the wider war over the planet for Talon. I think that they would. I think I read
Yeah,
those books a long time ago, being like, "Oh, this is a cool battle," but actually having this in the wider scope of the fact that it's near Rimwit, like what it means, this planet that was forgotten about, da da da. I think like going back and reading those books will probably have more meaning to me than they did when I read them like 8 years ago or whatever.
yeah. I mean, the Talon books aren't fan favorites. I don't think. I don't think they're particularly seen as being the best heresy books, but I
Yeah.
enjoyed them. And there's a lot of other stuff that it talks a lot more about the Alpha Legion in the Talon books and what
Okay.
they were kind of doing there. There's a really cool kind of side story of is it Calidus assassin, I
Right.
think, who thinks she's kind of outfoxing the Alpha Legion, and then Alpha Legion just do Alpha Legion shit.
Fuck yeah.
Which is like actually really cool. You read that and you're like, well, this is meant to be about Iron Warriors, but now I want to start an Alpha Legion
For Legion
army.
Force. Yeah, yeah, makes sense. I like that. Cool. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
let's say thank you to our sponsors. So thanks to Battle Bling. And if you haven't seen it, actually, we've been using of late a lot of the Battle Builder nameplate kind of construction website. So definitely check out that. And you can get Heresy Hammer 10% off if you use that code. Thank you also to Beowulf Miniature Printing, who's another 3D printer who's linked with the channel with the show. And does an awful lot of stuff. Like they've got a really good website. So if you are looking for bits for your, to make like breaches or recon marines, recons with shotguns, yeah, etc., etc., definitely worth checking them out because they've got like Mark 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the marks that you could think of for those bits. So yeah, give them a follow and go buy some stuff from them. And then finally, our most recent sponsor is Sacrus Mundus. So they are basically terrain designers. So you buy your STL files and then you yourself will print them up either on FDM or proper resin. I was only talking to my friend Tom the other day. He's looking to buy some of this stuff and create his own table. So it'll be interesting to see how this kind of like pans out and what it looks like. But yeah, some really creative stuff from those guys and really variable. And I think like if you guys are into the old world, I think that they do like farms and such as well as sci-fi
Yeah.
terrain. So if you want to defend an agri world that is made up of medieval farms, I suppose you can always go and do that as well for those guys. So definitely worth checking out. And if you want to become part of our own Seleucid Thorakites, then you can become one of our patrons. So just a particular thank you to all our patrons, but particularly thank you to our real friends of the show, our best friends of the show, which are Praetor Tears. No, of course, you're all friends of the show. These guys are just our Seleucid Thorakites. So these guys are our top tier patrons. They receive a gift from us every 6 months from the point of signing up. We're currently midway through giving the next round, which is t-shirts, a kind of like a measurer, a measuring tool, and a dice tray, a lovely leather and felt dice tray, which I saw used this weekend by one of our
Nice,
trade sorters,
nice.
which is really nice to see. And Lee is beavering away hard at work on kind of organising the next round, which
I am.
will shrouded in a virus fog of mystery for the moment,
Yes.
but soon we'll be told to you guys about what you guys can be expecting. So yeah, keep an eye out for that one. So yes, thank you ever so much to all our top tier Patreons. And if you are considering joining the Patreon, please, we'd love you to join. It allows us to continue to make the shows. It allows us to support you guys. It allows us to support events and things like that, like we've done over the course of this year. We've given out hundreds of pounds worth of like prizes and cash to events and things like that, so they can kind of give out prizes because we know what it was like when we were first starting events. Like
Yes.
your margins are very slim if you are even making any margins. So we've tried to help out, and our patrons allow us to do those things, and just helping us to build a wider. Like a wider community. So yeah, thank you guys. And then just finally from us, make sure keep on using hashtag Heresy Hammer for your stuff because it will be featured in the community show. We have yet to do the November community show, but that is coming. And there is also a place on our WhatsApp community where you can upload your hashtag Heresy Hammer like photos, and we can just get them from the WhatsApp as well. So make sure to use those things. If you're watching this via YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment, fuel the algorithm, etc. And then for our community shows, which we do once a month, we'd love to get any lists or emails or questions that you guys have got. It always makes my brain hurt when you guys send in like awesome lists and questions and queries and things that will really make our audience think. And really valuable stuff. So make sure you send those into heresyhammer30k@gmail.com. And a final one, if you haven't signed up to the Patreon, then please consider it for as little as £3 a month. And if you are an Apple user, just make sure you sign in via the actual Patreon website rather than like the Apple store because you will be paying 30% more than anybody else. So yeah, just bear that one in mind. But with that one, thank you ever so much from me, and thank you ever so much from Lee. And thank you, Lee, for taking us through the show today. That was really valuable.
No worries.
And we shall see you on the next one. So take care, guys. See you soon.
Cheers. Bye bye.